So definitely we want student questions here. So you look like a student. So
Yes, I'm a physics student, and I'd like to ask, how important do you consider your experience in industry before founding Skype? Do you think you would have been as successful in founding Skype without your experience at Tele2?
I don't know, because I cannot go back in time and try. Sometimes I've been thinking, well, I wish I've started earlier, because maybe I could have started, because I really enjoyed being an entrepreneur. But I also realized that there was a lot of things that I learned by working in an entrepreneurial company. I can learn from from the founders and the managers in those companies. But I think I did, for me it was several years of work experience, and I was kind of running teams, and I could probably have started much earlier to jump and to take that step. And I think many times you're holding back because for me it was like you're afraid of that failure. So I could have started earlier, but personally for me it was great to have that experience. But I think this is something that's very individual. Sometimes it can be great to start something right after university, or even at when you are at university, because you can you don't have so much to lose in terms you don't need to kind of quit the job, or you probably don't have a mortgage to think about and things like that. So sometimes the younger you are, the easier it is to kind of go out and start. But I would actually encourage people, if you're studying engineering, it's pretty good to go out and work for a startup company for a few years, because you will learn a lot that you don't learn in a university. And if you do that for 1 or 2 years, it's not you don't lose so much time, I think.
is there actually a way that we can get questions from our remote destination? I'm actually not sure if this is really Skype video or not. Any chance to get a question from you there?
Well, I hope that you hear us.
Fantastic.
That's great. Hello from Lüneburg. We are the second audience sitting behind you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this very interesting talk you gave to us. And well, indeed, I have a question to you, Niklas. You used this nice metaphor of starting a business being a kind of competition or even a game. What kind of rules should especially young entrepreneurs, we're a university, that's why I especially ask for the rules for students and as young entrepreneurs should, well, what kind of rules should they obey?
What rules when they determine if they're successful, or kind of what rules?
The rules of this game of starting your own business, find your balance between make your idea come true and fight your competitors.
Well, it's businesses is very simple, because everyone who's studied finance knows that it's return of investments that counts at the end of the day. So it's at the end of the day, a successful company is determined by the exit value or the shareholder value, the market cap, whatever you have at the end of the day. That's the scorecard that I think most entrepreneurs have. Having said that, I think that a lot of the very successful tech entrepreneurs are driven by that to some extent, but they're also very much driven by making an impact to change something, to prove a thesis, and to make a lasting impression. If you look at a lot of if you take people take Bill Gates as an example. He had this vision. He wanted to put a desktop, a computer in every desktop. He had a big vision. He wanted to go out and change that. Steve Jobs had several visions about how to change computing and how to and follow on that a lot of other things. Larry and Sergey had the vision about organizing the internet. We had a vision of making it possible for people to communicate for free. So I think that if you're not only driven by financial objectives, if you're a tech entrepreneur, you're probably driven also by making an impact and change something.
More questions?
Yes, I was very curious
One moment, just wait for the mic.
I found it very interesting how you told us how the idea for Skype came. So it was a technical problem and you found, okay, you can make telephony with it. But how did you then go on to find the business model, and what is your advice, your experience to actually get customers paying your bills and really get the company going?
So the way we thought about the business model, which turned out to be, still the business model, was that, you provide a software so that people can make free phone calls, and that's all good. But then the other person also needs to have the software, and while that may have been, an ultimate vision, we knew that that's not going to happen, that everyone in the world have Skype installed. So we thought there was always a need for people to make phone calls to other people who are not using Skype. And the way that the tariffs were set by the phone companies was that it was based on minutes and also by distance. So we said, okay, so in those cases when people make phone calls from Skype to the telephone network, let's use the internet all the way. So for example, if you make a phone call from Munich to Tokyo, let's take that phone call all the way on the internet and make a local termination in Tokyo, and thereby you only have to pay for a local phone call. So the Skype out tariffs that we come out with was based on destination and not by the distance. So then we had this freemium model, which meant that some people will pay for this because it's a great inexpensive service to make phone calls to normal telephones. So having the most, so basically 90% to 95% of all the users use the service for free. But because it was peer-to-peer, we have zero marginal cost for those users. And the service then become viral because, say that I downloaded Skype and I needed to call someone. Well, I need to tell my friends who I want to speak to that they also need to have Skype. So that way the service become viral. And then some people gradually realize that they can also use it to make phone calls to other users, people who are not users. So that was the business model actually we came up with from the beginning. And then we also thought about a few add-on business models in terms of click-to-call advertisement, which didn't really work out.
Great advertising, Lüneburg. But first a question here. What you should know is that currently the DLD is running, which is by far the best tech conference in the world. Definitely the best one in Europe. And the man who started it actually has a question. So I have to give you the word, Mr. Borda, to ask a question.
It's a long time ago then, when I started here. A question for you and for the professors here as well. How long should you study and what can you learn? Because I remember when I was at Facebook 3-4 years ago, and it was totally non-organized. Zuckerberg was not there. I was waiting, there was no secretary. I was in midst of the room where the coders were sitting. And of course, I'm always interested, like now, what are you doing? What are your expectations and so on? And I asked one of these young men, I said, how old are you? He said, I'm 21. When did you arrive here? A couple of months ago. Where have you been? Well, I finished Harvard because I couldn't learn anything there. It's absolutely nonsense to go to university because you learn only old applications, old business models for McKinsey or other companies. But this new world is so disruptive. Nobody at university can teach you a new business model. So I came here, say, pay me $120, and why should I go back to university? So I go on in German because this is für euch Professoren was. And you, Niklas, understand a little German. Die Frage ist ja, wie lang sollt ihr studieren? Weil die Business Models gehen so schnell, was wir jetzt gesehen haben auf der Konferenz. Die Ideen treiben so stark vorwärts und diese Intermediation ist so stark. Irgendein altes Verlagsmodell stimmt doch stimmt doch in der neuen Ökonomie gar nicht mehr. Es bezahlt ja niemand mehr Abonnements oder auch Kosten auf dem Netz, und auch das Advertisement hat sich total verändert. Also Sie lernen Businessmodelle, die dann vielleicht gar nicht mehr funktionieren. Ist es nicht besser, man geht, wie lange warst du an der Uni, Lars?
Einen Tag.
Also ist nicht, man geht relativ kurz und geht dann in die Praxis. Man kann ja hinterher immer noch die Wirtschaftstheorie insgesamt lernen. Aber das ist die Frage, die ich für Sie habe, denn was meinen Sie? Sie können auch auf Englisch antworten.
Okay, maybe I think it's not the right way of teaching only to say, okay, these are the business models today. That's an old publisher, that's a TV station. I think a better way of teaching is to say, okay, these are the fundamental principles behind. Maybe if you look at network effects, you say, okay, there's a network effect behind. I think it's helpful if you go to university to say, okay, these are the general principles behind. That's the first step. I think more have a focus on economic or other effects behind, and also technical trends. And then at the second step say, okay, and at this time we say, okay, these are ongoing models, but only as an example. And to say, okay, now you are able, also in a systematic way, also I have mentioned it, to say, okay, use the principles and use technical trends and to get more and better ideas. I think that's a better way of education, and we try to do it. That's my idea.
So Niklas, maybe you just imagine you're the dean of this university. What would you make them to learn?
Well, I think that I agree that what you need to do is to learn. It's about problem solving. It's about how to analyze a problem and to set it up to solve it, and about the principles. But if you take engineering, take software development, yes, it's moved on a lot, but it's still kind of some of the kind of thought process are, have not really moved on so much. And I think what you learn in university is the ability to solve problems, and that's very important. Then we have other disciplines also, like, in business about thinking strategically, sustainable competitive advantages. Those things are not really changing so much. Accounting is not changing. Accounting is very important. The legal...
Did you ever do accounting yourself?
I had done a little bit of accounting. And then I thought it was so boring. It's like, why do I need to do this? This is what accountants would do. Then I realized that that's actually something I should have paid much more attention to, because you end up looking at, financial statements, and if you're a director, you actually have to sign them, and if you don't know what it is, it's scary. So accounting is something that's very good to know. And, corporate law, is pretty stable. So I think there's a lot of things that what you learn in university is very important. And of course, if if you have a class that says that you're going to learn how to do search engine optimization, well, that's going to be quite a short-term kind of learning, because that changes all the time. And if there's a textbook, that's probably going to be already outdated. But that's not the point. You should look at it about the principles.
So maybe we move over to you, Lüneburg.
Yeah, I pass on the microphone to my neighbor.
Well, hello. I have a question to you, but before I make you my question, I wanted to say thank you personally to you, because I'm an Uruguayan German citizen now. I've been living here like for 10 years. And I remember when I came here for the first time, I was calling my family once in a month and talking to my father, my mother, and my brothers and sisters in 1 hour per month for like $100 a month. And we were suffering so much. And now I call every Sunday, and my grandmother knows how to answer per Skype phone, and how to put the headset, and how to turn on the video camera. And this is really a product which changed my life. So thank you for making my life easier. And my question to you is, we have been talking about, we have been talking about the success of Skype. Skype is now successful not only as a product, but also as a business. But Skype needed a long time to make money, I think, or I understood. Maybe you can correct me. So we have been talking a lot about success, but what about failure? I would like to know what you think. When is it a good time for an entrepreneur to go on, and when is it a good time to retire, to stop doing something? How do you recognize it? Is it the point where everybody tells you that you're crazy? Is it the point where you don't have money? Is it the point where people want you to go to jail? I would like to know your personal experience. Thank you.
Well, that's actually a very good question, and it's always hard to know, when things doesn't work out. But so with Skype, the whole journey was a long journey in a way, because I started several other companies that led up to, with Skype. It was the third company that we started that actually worked out, and it was an iterative process, and you start something and it doesn't work out. At some point, you need to say, okay, is this not going to work out? And then you stop it and you try to learn from it. And you should not retire, but you should stop the project and learn from it and take it as a learning experience to say, okay, what did we learn from this project? What assumptions was wrong? What was it? How did the market react? And what were the reasons why we failed? You can take that on and start your next project. And I think most entrepreneurs are going on longer, before they stop, rather than, very few entrepreneurs are quitting early, they're quitting late. But that's also what they should do, because it's the founder and entrepreneur who has to be the one who it's like the captain of a ship. It should be the last one leaving. But when you look around and all the people, left, all the people worked with you, they left, and you're the last one standing, then you maybe can, take 2 weeks of vacation and have a think. But you need to be the last, if you're a founder and if you start doubting, then everyone else is going to doubt. So you need to have the confidence and drive that extra mile before before you stop.
So before we close, maybe I have one last question for myself. You're an amazing entrepreneur, had so much success, but you're also giving back. And if you go to zennström.org, we find lots of activities you and your wife are doing in climate change, human rights, and social entrepreneurship. Maybe you comment a bit on why you do this and what kind of what should we learn from you in doing this?
Yeah, I think that the question should be, why not? Why shouldn't one do that? To me, it's a natural thing that if you have an ability to help out, to support organizations which are doing something for things that you care about, you support them, and maybe take something like human rights. It's like there's a lot of human rights violations going on all around the world, even within Europe. And I'm sure there are people here who are contributing to organizations like Amnesty and others. And if if you're successful and have a success with your business and you make money, then you can do that in a more systematic and more strategic way. And for me, it was always the environment has always been something I cared about. I also think it's also something that growing up in Sweden, you're very close to the environment. I've been in the Baltic Sea swimming every year, sailing, and I see that it's a sea that is dying, is one of the most dead seas in the world. Actually, we know what the problems are, and that's something that we can also sit back. Well, that's not my problem. It's something that the governments have to fix. But I think it's everyone's responsibility, in a society, to do what they can to contribute to a better society. And then me and my wife, we decided these are some areas that we care about personally, and she's always been supporting human rights activities. She's been a supporter for Amnesty. She was a volunteer for Doctors Without Borders, and now she's on the board of Human Rights Watch. And then I've been working with a lot of environmental organizations. And I think that's just a natural thing to do. To if you can do that, and I think why for me it would be more like if I didn't do that, then I would have to feel I had to justify why I wouldn't do it.
Excellent. All of you, and also those in Lüneburg, big round of applause.